Good morning, everyone. Welcome. It's great to see a full room. On behalf of the team that's been working hard on this, I just want to say thanks for showing up, and we're going to have a good session today. So I'll get started by way of introduction. My name is Adam Harmetz. I have worked on SharePoint for my entire professional career. This will be my 10th year with Microsoft. When I started fresh out of college, they asked me to figure out this thing called SharePoint and how it integrated with, at the time, something we called information rights management. I've worked on many things since then in the Office and SharePoint organization. And today I'm the group program manager responsible for portals. And I also think about content management, team sites, and the developer ecosystem. And Mark's with me today.
Yeah, my name is Mark Cashman. I'm on the marketing side of the house. And for about 5 years now, I've been focused on the cloud, primarily SharePoint Online. And that's all flavors, education, some of our dedicated space, but mostly the multi-tenant space. And just recently been focused on NextGen portals, working with Adam and his team, specifically on Office 365 video, but a lot of things that we're going to share today is what we're working on. So just the quick check of the room that you're in. This is, of course, for the intelligent, ready-to-go NextGen portal. So A, do you feel intelligent? And are you ready to go? If so, turn it over to Adam and we'll get kick-started here.
Awesome. So we have an agenda slide. For those that want to sort of know what's coming, this is how we're going to approach the next 75 minutes. I can let you read it to yourself, but just to sort of back up for a second, what we really want to get out of today is, I think in this room is the SharePoint brain trust. It is thanks to all of you that SharePoint is a market-leading solution for portals. And I know that many of you have bet your career and bet your business on SharePoint. And the main thing we just want you to take away is this has been a serious area of investment for us for the past year. And we think that the business problems and the scenarios and everything that you've bet on and used SharePoint to help solve are alive and well shepherded. And we want you walking out of here thinking that you have new tools for modernizing your internet. And you also have confidence that more is coming. And we have it all together. So, and if not, we want feedback. Like, this is an iterative process, especially with Office 365 in the cloud. We're only going to succeed with feedback from the folks like people in this room. So please, at the end, we'll talk about a myriad of ways you can connect with us, and we can help solve some of your problems. And of course, you can help us sort of guide the future. So if you look, we're going to do tons of demos today, but we wanted to start just a little bit with context and strategy. So when we say the word NextGen, we know that there's some ambiguity there, and we just want to be able to make it super crisp of how we got to what we're talking about, and so you can understand the tools that we're providing you to modernize the internet. So we'll start with just a tiny bit of context. Mark and I'll tag team it. I'll take the first part here. There's five, we go on roundtables and talk with customers and analysts and press all the time, and there's 5 key things that keep coming up that I hope resonate with all of you as well. And hopefully can set some context of what we're going. And so we'll quickly talk about all 5, and I think you'll see how these 5 things and these questions that customers like yourself have asked are influencing what we've chosen to invest in over the past year. So the first one, how do I modernize my internet for a bring-your-own-device workforce? So it's true that I'm sure all of you have mobile employees that are on the go, that carry multiple devices. And you're wondering, do I just take my desktop website and shrink it down such that it works on every device? Do I think about particular scenarios that are maybe more mobile ready? How do I go seamlessly between all the devices? Obviously, this was a theme of the keynote yesterday. And we think a lot about how the internet and portals can exemplify a lot of what Satya was talking about. And so that's one key thing you'll see today. I think we bought demos from every single major phone platform, and we'll hopefully show how you can go from device to device. The second one is, obviously a theme of this conference is the cloud and the balance between cloud and on-prem and what's each one good for. And we think an awful lot about a strategy that sort of embraces the cloud for what it's good for and embraces on-prem for what it's good for. And people ask a lot, like, is it just about migration? Is it just about parity with the cloud? Which seems okay, maybe a first step, but limiting over the long term. What can we do? What is unique about the cloud that my intranet, my ability to connect with employees and help find data, how can it actually be a force multiplier as opposed to just yet another step on the treadmill? The third one's a little geeky, so we'll take a second to talk about it. But as we all know, portals at the end of the day is a little bit about finding content. And I broadly hear from customers there's 3 ways people want to do that, or 3 new ways. One is social feeds. Let's just replace portals with a Yammer feed and maybe call it a day. Obviously, search-driven dynamic queries. My website gets a little stale, so let me spice it up with the content search web part. Obviously, with the rise of the graph, that's long, 2013 had a major emphasis on search-driven queries, and with the graph, we maintain that sort of intelligence vibe. And then content editing or curation, the process of manually creating a navigation hierarchy, organizing through metadata. And as we looked at portals going forward, we didn't want you to have to make a choice between these 3 options. How can we leverage all in one place? And so we felt like part of the strategy was going to be figuring out how you can get the best of all 3 worlds here. 4th piece of content, silos are terrible. I hear that all the time from customers over and over again. I built a portal. It sort of connects with the rest of my experiences, but I wish it connected more. How can I have it really integrated into both my line of business systems, my other portals, my productivity experience? I bet on SharePoint for that connection to Office clients. How is that playing out going forward? And we'll talk a lot about today. I think this is what makes portals mission critical, really when they can be used and used throughout all the productivity experiences. And we hear that an awful lot. And the last piece of context is that budgets are tight. And then people forevermore, ever since I remember my first customer meeting 10 years ago, this was sort of the theme of it. People just want to use more out of the box. How do I use more and build less? That doesn't mean not build at all, but it means can we leverage out of the box what it's good for, allowing you to spend more time on the sort of differentiated value part of building. In other words, can you build the things that are unique for you and sort of use the things that are same across all customers that we can just provide. So I want to spend just a couple minutes. These are the common things that I hear. These are the common themes that helped guide where we went over the past year. And assuming that the feedback is confirming from sessions like this, will continue to guide us going forward. Mark, would you take us through the next step of context?
So if those questions resonate with you, we hope that some of the visuals that we have here are landing on what we're just thinking in terms of the common patterns of portals. These are the things that we've been seeing our customers build on top of SharePoint. And connecting services, it's not that what we're doing is completely new. We know that a lot of customers are putting their portals and connecting them to backend systems, writing their own front UI, master pages, and whatnot. And so these are the patterns that we see, and we hope that these resonate with you. So the next question I just wanted to ask, just to get a show of hands, is from a custom portal perspective, just a show of hands of who have built a custom portal. Okay. Or no, certainly that your company has. And just if you look at these, hopefully as we walk through them, just to give you a little bit of sense of what we're landing on. And in the next section, when we talk about strategy, you'll see why, if we can take these and make them something that are ready to go and intelligent for you. We know that a lot of these take months to build and budget, and sometimes just time and then life cycle to actually manage them, so that when you want the next feature, or you just want the thing to keep running and not go down. So the left-hand side, top left, is if you were to build a broader company intranet, something for news, something for broader messages to the company, and also hooks into other sites. And typically this is also where we see people do broad search to find content, to find sites, and ultimately maybe find people. Which gets us into the people search. Internally, we've got a really nice website that the IT team has built, purely just to find people. And the way that they've built it is based on who they are, if you know their name, and sometimes if you misspell their name, to make sure that that's not a blocker. And then also by expertise. So if you typed in just a keyword on something you're interested in or looking for, you might also find people. So those are pretty common. We see those built a lot. And we introduced expertise search, but certainly a portal will take it from there and make it even more. Knowledge management is something we've been sort of teasing in our blogs that we'll be focusing on. And we have a whole section on that and then a whole talk later. So again, another common portal we see people building where you have that content that's a lot more final in terms of its approved content. It's listed as maybe customer ready, partner ready, internal only, those types of things. And has some lifecycle management to the content that can be automated or at least programmatically plugged into this portal. So when people go there, they're finding content that they know they can use without asking, can I show this to X or Y? Video portal, obviously, if you've been looking at the blog or obviously paying attention to some of the things that we've been showing recently, one of the first portals that we've focused on is the video portal. So I'm not going to talk too much about that because we're going to show you a lot. And then we've got a couple of sessions across the week, one in particular that's going to go into really the nuts and bolts of the how and spend time on the back end side of things so that you know how we did it. From an employee resources and tasks, obviously you can think of these as places that people go to get things done. Oftentimes they're with business solutions tied to them, customizations a little bit from a design perspective, but more in how they're connected to back-end systems to help automate some of those things that are repeatable across all employees. And then departmental, think of that as your IT team. This is where you go to learn about things that they have standardized across your desktop and how to do some help items, training, or something in the HR department where this is where every new employee is onboarded and they've built a custom experience and they flow you through the portal and all is good. So if this resonates with you, hopefully it does, that these are the kinds of portals you've either built for others or have accessed and used in your company. And you'll get the intent when we talk about it from a strategy perspective. This is what we've been seeing people do for 10, 14 years on SharePoint. And we also hear the common places where people have the pitfalls, building portals. Not just on SharePoint, but just building portals, how they connect them to backend systems, and then, of course, the maintenance and the overall duration of cost and time. So we have a great session from an internal perspective if you want to learn how the Microsoft IT team has been taking portals from on-premises and moving them online, and the way that they're thinking about it and the way that they're adjusting things, and, of course, how they're thinking about NextGen portals, because they're seriously reviewing how do they not have to manage the portals going further, but let the service manage it for them. So if that sets a little context for the types of portals we're seeing, and these resonate as high-value, pretty common portals, when we get into the strategy, which I'll hand off to Adam, you'll see sort of why we're painting the picture here today and then where we're going with the strategy.
Cool. Thanks, Mark. Strategy. So, we talked about the rise of the cloud, rise of mobile, pretty well-known trends, certainly if you hear Satya speak at all. And we saw we're in a situation where, yes, there's many types of portals built, but there is sort of if you were to graph it in the histogram, there is a head, right? There is common patterns that we see people doing over and over again. And so that's sort of the summary of the context here. And if we think about the strategy, I guess we're opening a new front or a new tool for you to be able to use. First, we have a custom portal platform today. That's broadly what I describe as sort of the current strategy of SharePoint, what we have had, where you have a set of building blocks provided by Microsoft, and you can assemble the portals that you need. And we will talk about continued investment and partnership in that. And so there's a couple big points. We have some drill-ins coming towards the end where we will talk about how we're modernizing your ability to build a portal. But really what we want to talk about today and where we're going to focus is the fact that we have these common portal patterns. We have the same things being built over and over again by many of you. And so when we say NextGen, intelligent NextGen portals and ready to go, what we are introducing is a suite of these based on the common portal patterns that we have seen people build over and over again. The video portal is an example of something that we saw a lot of people build. We saw a lot of hard problems that could be solved once centrally. And we saw a lot of ability then to customize, to be able to extend that in particular ways, but basically provide that out of the box for everybody. And the other important part of this strategy is that over time you'll see the APIs and the controls that we use in sort of our vertical apps or the ready-to-go portals will be available back to you as portal developers to be able to integrate into your portal, to be able to use to build your own portals, and basically such that we don't have a disconnected silo. And we have good, we can bridge the line between the green and the blue on this slide without there being seams. Which is all good, and there's lots of arrows, but let's go from arrows to boxes, I guess. This is sort of a slide that goes in more details. If you're picking up your iPad or your phone and you're taking one picture, this is the slide you want to do it for. This is the slide that sort of introduces. Wow, that actually really works. Look at that.
Hold on.
Do that more often. Yeah, a selfie stick or something. This is a slide that sort of gives you sort of the roadmap of what we've invested in so far, where we're going, and at a high level, what are the core value props. And so we'll talk about the top band in just a second. Let's talk about the 4 key pillars. We said intelligent. That was in the title, and we're all intelligent in this room. That really means powered by the graph. That really means an extension of content by search and the query-based and the search-based approach that we've used, except complemented by the graph, which is now complementing sort of the search index with signals of activity. So what people are doing in the system, taking that back in. And you've all seen various ways that the graph has been used. I think the portal space has this opportunity to be a set of killer apps, both what we provide out of the box as well as what you can build to really show the power of the graph. Secondly, there will be social by default. You'll see how we've infused Yammer, but even going beyond that, things like recommendations and comments, liking, and just making portals part of the social fabric. They will be mobile. You will see that. That doesn't mean that every single experience will be available on every device. We think about what is needed for that particular task when we provide it, and you'll see how that will grow over time. And then ready to go, which means it'll be available to you out of the box. It's something that you can hopefully just use, and then you can spend your precious dev time on things that are truly differentiated. So what does that mean in terms of the portals we provide? We've talked about Office 365 Video. That is one portal that we will be demoing today. The next one we thought about was people experiences, or a people portal, basically the future of expertise discovery. And we decided to build that within Delve, and we'll talk about why that is. But that's a second important portal type that is ready to go, provided by us. The next thing, we're codenaming Infopedia right now. That is basically knowledge management and discovery. If you have best practices, if you have handbooks, if you have things that you need to distribute to your employee resource that are mission critical for people to read and digest, be it documents, pages, or et cetera, Codename Infopedia will be a place, a center of gravity within your institution to be able to do that. And we'll drill in on that as well. And then finally, as we look at NextGen portals all up, that brand, that thinking covers the custom portals you will build as well. So they're also part of our NextGen strategy. They're being modernized with similar principles, but obviously there's a different mechanic where we're providing things out of the box in those blue ones, and then we provide tools for you in the orange one there. And the last point on this slide is that you could read this slide and say, hey, we're just creating more disconnected silos, and we don't want anything to be further from the case. I think that double negative was right. But by using the same 365 capabilities across all of these, be it storing documents in OneDrive, be it using the graph, be it having consistent support for Office add-ins, be it using SharePoint for content management, that provides an integration between all of these. Because they're all part of Office 365, because they're all part of that ecosystem, they all are connected together. That, in addition, we have UX tunnels between all these experiences as needed. And we'll show some of that as well. So that's a strategy in a nutshell. What you see, those three types of portals, it's more than one, so now we actually have a strategy. When you just have one portal, you're like, well, you just build a portal, and there was a couple things you said about it. Now that we have multiple demonstrating the same principles, you can see we're getting to a rhythm. That's balanced with continuing to invest in custom, and then all having the same underlying fabric. So let's jump in. This is going to be the agenda for the rest of the day. We're going to go from left to right across each portal type. Mark is going to take us through the video portal.
All right, so Office 365 Video. I like the show of hands thing. So show of hands, anybody using Office 365 Video? And anybody just piloting? Okay, so more than I thought coming here. So where we're at, we've had it out in terms of first release, and which means just where we first release it to people who have subscribed to the first release mechanism, which just means you're an early adopter. But we've been rolling out a first release now for a couple weeks, and we're actually getting to the point where we're almost at 100% worldwide rollout. So if you want the portal, the video portal, you can get it now. So there's no blocker of having to be in first release, and we're pretty complete with rolling it out. So now we're just chugging on what's coming next. So the reason why we went with the portal, obviously we've kind of given you the strategy of what we've seen our customers doing, but the reality is there's just a whole world of how people are now consuming and producing communications. Of course, there's the live broadcast. That's a big component. You heard about that in the keynote with Skype for Business. And so we think we have a really good answer to how do you do live video if you're an Office 365 customer. From an on-demand perspective, either after that webcast is done and now it's in an on-demand format, they talked about how you could publish it over to the Office 365 portal when you're done with your Skype for Business cast. we want to do a lot of those scenarios just because video is super important. Sometimes you can't make it to the meeting, you want to catch it on demand. And now the threshold of how good the playback is, how accessible it is across devices, and what you're seeing here just from one of our analysts, Gartner, they're just saying, of course, a lot of people are watching more and more content. And I think some of that is because it's an easy mechanism. A lot of users just like watching video. But the reality is, just think a couple years ago, if not maybe a little bit more in the distant, the buffering experience has not been good in the past. And now the technology is really good, and we have a really great back end, which we'll talk more about. But the reality is this is another proof point that video is important, and we want to do better to video when it comes to what we've done in the past and really what we're doing in the future. So the quick rundown, and then we'll really take a look at Office 365 video. The biggest goal, obviously, is if end users can't access the content and it's not a good experience, then they're just going to drop it like a hot potato. It doesn't matter what content you put there if it's hard to get to. So we want to make it easy to consume, and certainly that lends to, once they've viewed it, if they think it's valuable to others, make it easy to share. And this is that aspect of Office 365 video that gets into the social space. To make it easy to share for others to discover, that's a big focus for us. So that comes into play with both Yammer and Delve, and video is a first-party first-party experience in both of those. But it also comes down to where does the content live and how secure is it? Because it's in Office 365 by default, it meets the same SLA, and that means the file that you uploaded, the file that gets transcoded, and then during playback, everything is encrypted at rest and everything is encrypted in transit. And that's super important, and certainly where we started, we had that mantra, and we've maintained that even as we increase the mobility and the experience landscape. So if you take that in a nutshell in terms of the pillars and how we're approaching video, let's take a look at it. So, VGA1?
7.
All right, a little confirmation that you guys can see. If I hit the right one?
8.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so this is the home screen, how I got here. In the app launcher, now we've got a video tile. So when we say it's rolling out worldwide and at near 100% or close, this is one of the first things you'll see. We're on by default. You can certainly disable, but we hope that you at least try it and start to like it, maybe get a few users or if not the whole company. But your users and, of course, your admins will start to see the video tile, and then when you click into it, you'll land at the page that I'm on here. And the mix here is at the very top, we have the ability to spotlight content. So if you've got a set of 2 to 10 people in your company that are managing what content you want everyone to see when they hit this page, that's what you see at the top, and we call those the spotlight channels. We then have a default channel called Popular, and this is the first place where you'll see the Office graph. So everything in here is based on clicks and views, but it's also based on the relevancy of the user. And this is something that we'll put a lot more effort into to hone the more information that we get out of the Office graph. The majority of what you get from the Office graph is a personalized experience for your end users. So popular is driven by, of course, how many people are viewing it, but then how popular is it to me who signed in, not just to everybody that signs in. And as I scroll down, the other concept of being able to pin experiences that everybody will at least see is you can also put channels on and spotlight channels. And you'll see 3 here that we have here. As I click into one, as I go into another page that we have, which is really all of the channels, you can create as many channels as you want. We've got a much higher limit now in SharePoint Online that's backing this. And we can support up to 500 site collections, which translates into you can create as many channels probably as you need, but certainly in the structure that you require. If I click into the executive corner, imagine now I've maybe am the main admin, and I've given delegated administration rights to somebody else who's going to then manage just this channel. So now I'm maybe another person, and I can choose what content I want to spotlight for this particular channel. So these are all pieces of video that you can curate and manage at the top here. But then the first pivot that we have, again, is popular, driven by the Office graph. If I click into this particular video, this is where I want to spend just a couple moments, not only to show you that we have playback and you can go full screen, and of course we got your common controls for just video. This is really where we've got the first uplift of the next level of Office graph integration. So this you might like is going to be different for everybody that logs in. Maybe similar if you're close in relationship from the graphs perspective, but if you work in a very different area of the company or you work with very different people and focus on different topics, this particular view of what you might also like will be tied to what you're watching, but it'll also be fed by what you are interested in. So the video itself is playing from Azure Media Services. This is the same technology that's behind the Olympics. If you've watched Olympics 2012 or 2014, the video playback, all their videos, hours and hours and hours, and these are not just 5-minute segments, some of these are 3-hour long events, are playing from Azure Media Services. That's now an embedded part of the Office 365 experience and is something that doesn't cost the company. Everything we do in Azure, the transcoding and the storage and the playback, is all at no cost in addition to, of course, what your investment is for Office 365. So the video is playing back from Azure Media Services. We're getting information from the Office Graph. And then we also have a social experience here embedded where we've got a Yammer conversation. And if this video was newly uploaded or people hadn't commented on it, it would be a blank feed and you could start a thread. But here I'm just going to say, hi, Ignite. And then post that down. And maybe not to all company, but to a particular group, sales opportunity group. Post that down. That's going to feed it over into Yammer. So if I have a Yammer on my phone, on my desktop, in the feed you'd now see a post that just has a link back to the video. And one of the things that we're working on is to make that a better experience so that you will be able to view it in line. Today it'll take you back to the player page, but again, that the conversation is just side by side. So the last thing I just want to show you here before we start to look at what's the mobile experience is just what is that back end from an admin's perspective. And I'll show you really quickly because one of the new things that we've done is really on the channel page. But I want to give an idea that if you're managing the home page, you can limit who actually has access to manage the home page. And it's not go into site settings, users and groups, and manage through the permissions model in the UI that we used to have. We try to really simplify the how you do it, but not to simplify the what you want to do. We want you to be able to have as much governance and control over the home page in every channel. So if you want it full company-wide, great. If it's just for 10 people, great. And that's based on the SharePoint permissions model, but we've simplified it here in the UI. And then from a Spotlight perspective, if I wanted to change one of these videos, you'll see I can click on it. If there's other videos that we want to highlight, and I try to get one that's a little bit different so you can see the change, say OK, click Save. And then when we go back to the home page, that new video will be there. And there it is. So if I go into another channel, the Executive Corner, and I now go into the... One of the things that Adam said that we'll highlight at the very end is the concept of how you provide us feedback. Obviously, being here at the conference is great, and we love it. And we want to talk to you here at the booth and corner us and make sure that you have your voice heard. But we also have mechanisms after the conference, and we'll go through what they are. But I want to show you this last thing here is actually very much driven by a lot of what our customers were missing when we first came out of the gate. We used to only have 2 levels of permissions, which meant you could own the page and upload videos, and then you could be a viewer. But of course, you want that next level down, and we got that feedback very clearly. So just recently, within the last couple weeks, we just introduced now 3 levels of permissions, and it actually makes sense. And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, we should have done that first place. But that's the nice thing is about a service is it's always changing. So now we have people that can own, people that can upload, and then just viewers. And again, manage this to whatever governance and whatever requirements that you have. So I'm going to switch over now to the phone and show you the experience on the iPhone with the new app. And then what does it look like if there isn't an app and how it plays back via our new HTML player. So if I remember Adam's code. And then so here is our new Office 365 Video for iPhone app. Anybody downloaded and play with it yet? Anybody want to come up and do the demo? Okay. So there's one little tweak and difference that you'll see just at the tail end of this first part of the demo that you don't have if you've downloaded the app, because this is a pretty fresh build and it's got one new feature. But if you remember the Spotlight channels on the very top, that's what you have here, and I'm just swiping left to right, and you can see those videos that somebody's pinned and made sure that it's called to my attention. And then you see all videos here. I'm on a particular channel called Customer Research, and as I navigate over, you can see I can access all the different channels that I have. I can go to that popular channel, or I can go home. And again, you have that same concept being able to spotlight. I can do a search, which is going to do a live search against all videos and allow me to find that. If I drill in to a particular video, go into this pretty looking one with the chairs, because that might resonate a little bit later in the presentation. Obviously, you see here we have the ability to play the video, a little bit of information about the video. I'll click play, and hopefully we go full screen. This is one that, there you go. So there's no audio to this, just by nature of how we are demoing. But I'm playing this back, obviously, on the iPhone. One of the things that we do on the back end is we encode into a specific format so that it plays really well on the iPhone. And our service detects the device, it detects the bandwidth, and it adjusts. Imagine if you're on a train commuting in and you go 3G, 4G, LTE, back to 3G. About every 2 seconds, the system is checking what's the experience on the phone. And we know the device, so we send the right type of file. And then we know what the bandwidth is and obviously adjust accordingly. We have that as an adaptive, smooth streaming. So the new feature, if you've been playing around with this app, the last thing I wanted to show you is, before I do that, let's see, we'll just go right to that. Of course, you can also upload video. So if I created something in the iMovie app and I had it already on the phone and I can upload it there, or I could shoot RAW and be able to upload straight from the iPhone. And I'll talk about one other thing before I hand it back to Adam. That's another area where we have a publish to scenario. So the new feature that's going to come relatively soon is the share button. And you can see I have a number of different ways that I can share. I'm going to do it through email, pretty simple. And I'm going to type to my friend Garth. Does anybody know Garth Fort? So Garth gets a lot of email. And I'm just going to say, new video for you. And if I mistype, then we're going to hit send. And then if the demo gods are with us, and Adam, if you can help me switch over to our friend. I have pinned to my Windows phone. So a little question, just so that this next part of the demo is really clear. Does Windows Phone currently support Flash in Internet Explorer Mobile? Not too tricky question, but it's a yes or no. Do you think it does or doesn't? No. So, of course, there are other platforms, one of the ones I just came off of, that's pretty historically known for not supporting Flash. And if you didn't know, when we first came out of the gate, we were Flash only. But now we are not, and I want to show you what that experience is. So I'll pick it up just a little bit and tell me if it gets a little fuzzy. But this is Garth. This is just his email. He just got a new email. I'm going to click into it, and there's the link that I sent to myself. And as long as it keeps me logged in from when I was setting up here, without Flash and without an app, this is going to load. And it's going to responsively adapt to this environment. So if I were to have clicked that link on an Android tablet, if I had clicked on that link on an iPad, small device, if I had gone in and used one of the new Surface Hubs, this would adapt and scale to the size that you would expect, and of course, give you the ability to play back. And it's auto-playing here. If I go full screen, there we go. So, nice little feature as far as just sharing by email. The reality, though, is the reason why we're getting to be mobile first and cloud first, and truly now, I think just in the last couple of weeks, being able to support that through video, is because we're coming out with apps that are first party as a native app on devices, and we're having a full-blown HTML5 player built in with responsive design so that it adapts to pretty much any device that you can access. So quick glimpse back to slides, and just wanting to talk about what's coming, and a little roll-up about what we've just shipped recently. Not only are we in production near 100%, but we've also done a lot of work. Of course, mobile I just showed you. We've also done a lot of work to tune the performance, so we're plugging into a CDN system, and that's gotten a lot of great feedback. In different areas before CDN, we were getting good feedback and some buffering feedback, and with the CDNs in place, a lot of the folks that were giving us the buffering feedback, that has gone down significantly. We also introduced new REST APIs, and we'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about custom portals. But the reality is, at this phase, we're now in preview and plugging into the whole dev environment, dev.office.com, and following those similar patterns as far as how we're making the portal accessible. Some of the things that we're working on, and we'll be showing actually in a later session that's listed here, is the ability to embed these videos outside of the portal. So, that's been a common request, and it's actually the one that's been bubbled up to the top in our user voice. And if you don't believe us that we're driven by feedback, and of course, we have a lot of things that we'd like to do that hopefully you don't know about, and we'll delight you along the whole journey. Embed is a big one. Finishing a lot of the responsive pages across the whole portal so that the home page, the channel page, the search page, any page that you land on is responsive to and across all devices. And I'll let you read a few of the other things that we're working on. One of the things that you heard Julia talk about when she was demoing Skype for Business is that ability to go from the Skype publishing environment, their client, or through their new web environment, and then to be able to publish to the Office 365 video portal. The one that we have in market, and then I'll hand over to Adam, is a connection that an integration with the Office Mix team. Office Mix is a plugin for PowerPoint, And already today in market, they actually were available with us at first release. You can, in a PowerPoint, use their plugin to create your own training type videos per slide, audio or video. And then when you're complete, you like what you have, you publish that up into the Office 365 video portal, give it a title, choose a channel, and now it's new training available in Office 365 video. So we think there's going to be a lot of those publish to scenarios we will drive, and with the new APIs, we think there will be a lot of third parties, some of which we're talking to here, that are interested to be able to publish into the portal. And this is the video portal, and we think there's a lot of scenarios for publish to.
Cool.
So that's Office 365 video.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, I please use. Are people familiar with what user voice is? Sort of. It is you go to uservoice.com, or it's that URL on the previous slide when you can download the deck. It's just a way where you can sort of suggest features and upvote and downvote them. A lot of teams at Microsoft are starting to use it, and we take that feedback super seriously. It's an incredibly important part, and we sort of need that to constantly improve the product. So let's move on. Let's talk about another type of portal and another experience that has been at the heart of SharePoint for many releases, which is sort of people-centric experiences. Finding experts, nurturing your network. And I figured we'd start with a couple why questions. So why did we decide a people portal was sort of the next investment, and why did we decide to sort of light that experience up within Delve? As far as why people portal, I hope it's sort of you get a lot of head nods that yes, this is a very important thing to my company. We took a look at the recent, so every year there's a design agency or consultant agency that lists the top 10 intranets, best designed, most innovative. And the report for 2015 came out a couple months ago. And all 10 of the top 10 had a person profile and people experiences embedded into their award-winning portal. And this is just one of many data points that I could talk about to sort of show that portals and people discovery are pretty intertwined. And it also tends to be something that not only that you have as a standalone, but it's something that needs to be incredibly embedded into a bunch of other experiences. And so we thought there was a large opportunity for us to help you in this situation. And then why in Delve? Welly and Stefan, two of my colleagues, have a drill-in session where they'll talk about more. But when we really look at Delve, which is today finding content, when we looked at the initial feedback from Delve, very many people were going to Delve, looking at the home screen, sometimes clicking on the suggested content, but more often than not, they were just entering a person's name. And sometimes they were looking for a person, and sometimes they were just looking for content, but they knew that this content was associated with this person. And so finding content through people is super, super common. And as you'll see, one of the ways we make people experiences re-energized is finding people through content. And so there's this virtuous cycle, and if you sort of look at what the graph is, it's nothing but edges between people and content. And so there was just this synergy. I just used the Microsoft synergy word. Oh well. Between people and content and this virtuous cycle that we thought could help if we sort of built content and people discovery together in one place and modernized it. Which sort of leads us to the core value props. There we go. Of our investment. You know, the tagline for Delve People Experience is who knows what and who does what. And we really believe there's three key things we're trying to achieve. One is using your network and working within your network to connect with folks, to recognize them. We have quite a bit of research that shows when employees have an environment when they can praise others, where they can thank others, and they can connect with others, it increases employee retention, it increases a bunch of great core business metrics that you look at. And secondly, of course, it's powered by activity. That's probably the primary new aspect of people discovery compared to, for instance, the SharePoint 2013 release, sort of embedding it with intelligent insights. And then lastly, this was actually from early feedback as we talked about it. We know that in order to be successful, you don't need just another profile experience. You need a profile experience you can build off of to connect your third-party apps in, and one that can be connected to from a variety of apps, processes, and devices. And we'll sort of show how we've already started connecting Delve people experiences and the Delve profile to various parts of Office 365. So let's go ahead and take a look. I like to start by looking at the Delve mobile app. How many people have downloaded the Delve mobile app? Great. And so there's a few core scenarios that it was solving. One is people discovery and figuring out what people are working on. So I'm going to go to the top-down camera.
Real quick, while he's just getting set up for 2 seconds, The people experiences is actually something that we just have started just a couple weeks ago, rolling into first release. So if you have first release and haven't gone to look at these or try some of the new features, I think it'd be great to, after you see some of what Adam does, if you have that, and know that it's coming very soon. It's one of those things that is rolling out currently.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll show a mix of things that are available in first release today and coming very soon, to sort of give you an early preview of where we're going. But all this is on the roadmap in a matter of weeks and months. So this is the Delve mobile app. And you can sort of see this is the home screen that if you go to the Delve info session, they'll drill into. But you can see front and center in the Delve mobile app was the notion of people. And so this is discovered from the graph, the people that I commonly work with. So if I were to click on somebody like Alex, I can see what Alex works on. I can see who Alex works with. And I can see who Alex and Alex's colleagues, what content that they work with. So there's a quick, in a mobile app, sort of in a very sort of snacky, quick way where I can get quick information about Alex, focused mostly first on activity. I think we'll broaden it to other scenarios as time goes by, but we wanted to be able to ship a mobile app that was coherent and great at a few things, and sort of discovering people was one of them. Let me switch over to the desktop and sort of go in more detail about where Delve people experiences are going. Oh, I think we're on 8.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I missed. There you go.
So this is similar to what you saw in the keynote as far as the coming soon Delve experiences. And if I were to quickly just look up somebody like Stefan, I can see the new modern profile page. I can see it's endued with activity, which you're maybe familiar with if you've been using Delve for the past couple months. Similar to on the phone, you can see it's filled with how Stefan is interacting within Office 365. What I want to spend a little bit on is this new profile experience. And so you can see it has what you would expect. It has the contact information. It has where Stefan is in the org, and eventually that will expand to where he is sort of in the social graph of the organization and an ability to drill in. We have links to common tasks. We have his basic profile information. We also have a couple other key things on here. See that working on chunk where he works on Juno collection and energy-saving offices. Thanks, Mark. Mm-hmm. So this is an interesting example of blending the graph with sort of personalization and manual curation. We're actually mining what's going on in the system. We're mining DLs that he's part of. We're mining modern groups that he has joined, and sort of suggesting sort of tags, if you will, of what he works on. But we can also have Stefan come in and confirm or deny or add his own things in there too. But we really think to sort of boost the amount of value on this screen and the amount that it is useful to others, we should bootstrap, using the graph, an idea of what it works on. You can consider this sort of a mini preview of the Activity tab, which then you can go and drill in more. But it's more of a summary experience. And then finally, you'll notice the praise chunk, or card at the bottom, sort of right there. And so praise, I mentioned it for two reasons. One is an example of a first-party app, of which we imagine people will add third-party apps as well. So we're envisioning a place where you or ISVs could add custom cards on this page. You might be able to say this person is a manager, what open roles do they have? That's something that, of course, we can't build out of the box. But we want to have a place where you can add your own third-party systems. That's coming soon. But praise is an example of what you'd imagine, right? It's just sort of another card you can place on the page. And, praise is actually, it reinforces that point I made earlier about being able to recognize and thank employees. As we roll this out within Microsoft, we're actually working pretty close with the Human Resources Department, an area of the org that we haven't necessarily worked with before. They're both their IT department as well as Human Resources themselves, because we think that this can actually be part of strategic HR initiatives at the company, helping encouraging recognition, helping encouraging employees to connect with one another. And so we're sort of excited about sort of bootstrapping the adoption by using the HR department and investing in things that help employee retention. So, one other quick thing that I want to show, if I go back to the same tenant that Mark was on a little while ago, is how connected this is, or starting to be connected to the rest of the 365 ecosystem. So for instance, people are probably familiar with People Search in 2013 and as it exists in the service today. So I could search for web marketing, and I could click on the People tab. And of course, it's still awesome. Wow, this actually changed since the last time. Search is dynamic and updated. But no problem. It should totally still work.
It never stops crawling.
Exactly. Never stop crawling. And so this is connected to the rest of the ecosystem. So of course, people search is invested in the quick preview and interesting information. And if I were to click through on the name, I'm taken to this experience, the profile experience that you just saw before, right? And so this is a bridge between sort of what exists and what's coming. And it's a way that we can sort of connect the people system to the rest of Office 365. Again, if I were to go to my OneDrive for Business, and I see Garth, and I'm wondering who that is, and I want more information, I'm going to click through. Once again, this is redirected to the same people experience. And so this is a call to action today. We're going to be adding more APIs so you can to directly integrate into this. We're going to allow you to do third-party apps on the profile page. But even today, you can start redirecting your existing portals that you've built when they're infused with people to this experience, right? And you can start building that central network. So that's just a brief preview of where we're going with people experiences. And this is sort of a summary for the slide deck that you can have as a reference about the core points. You can see it's infused with intelligence. It has a sort of a new element of social in terms of praise. We'll support mission-critical apps embedded on this experience. And more to the point, though, we don't have time to cover all the details of this today. Willie Lee is currently taking a picture of me right now. Hi, Willie. And Stefan are going to go into more detail. And I definitely encourage you to go to that session. It is get there early. There's a ton of people that are interested and signed up. And they have an awesome session plan that weaves content discovery and people discovery together. So this is sort of a quick snippet and a preview of it.
Yeah, and I think just a quick call out. Welly's over there. He's on Adam's team. If you think about Adam's team, focused on sort of the portal aspects. Stefan comes from the Oslo team, which builds the Office Graph and Delve. And really, the two teams coming together, you'll have two speakers that can really talk and showcase the best of what they're doing and how they're coming together.
Great. So we've talked about a video portal that clearly demonstrated graph integration intelligence. It had Yammer embedded with social, a mobile experience, and was just ready to go. Same with these the people experience in Delve. Let's talk about a third scenario, a third type of portal, which I have to point.
Yep.
Sort of capturing knowledge management. And this one we're going to take a bit of a different approach. Instead of just talking about the portal, we're sort of going to build up to it. We're going to talk about the user problem. We're going to talk about first steps. And eventually you'll see, and we'll tease a sneak peek of a long-term vision of a central portal. But instead, for this one, instead of sort of going with a big bang portal, we decided to sort of build a set of features smartly within the 365 system that was going to help with knowledge management and eventually build up to a central center of gravity in managing knowledge. So Mark, do you want to talk a little bit about the user problem?
Yeah, I mean, what we see is a lot of people who are coming in and creating the data. Sometimes there's the mantra of we have a governing body inside the company and they hold all the keys and provide all the information top down. And that could be for the sales, that could be for services, any type of the company that's really pushing content on down, and they expect that everybody watches it. They're tracking metrics on who's viewed what, how much of they accessed, what did they read. As we see this amount of data, sometimes there's also the other reverse of that, the bottoms up. And that's a good thing, we think, and supported, of course, across the way that these portals can be built. But that's just really everybody having a voice and being able to contribute into not just the sea of data as a negative, but just that there's so many people that are contributing. And these are videos, these are podcasts, these are white papers, these are presentations. But they're not necessarily governed, but certainly everybody is a subject matter expert and populating information into the system. And we want to definitely support both of those. So what it really equates to is it's not always going to be published into a singular area. It could be coming from all over the place. We've highlighted a few here that we can think of. They could be coming from team sites. They could be coming from OneDrive for Business. They could be coming from groups and other activities, just in email, attachments. So we think that there's a lot of ways to mine that data. The graph gets us a lot of the ways there. But what we don't want, and certainly what we hear from our customers, is we don't want people to have to search and really keep having to search and search and search. We want them to find, or what we're working on in addition to finding in a much easier way, is the discovery engine, that discovery piece.
Yeah, and so at sort of a meta level, when you think about the problem from the start, there's just a lot of data and people need to spend time organizing, collecting it, and explaining it. And so when we thought about how to sequence this investment, so in other words, what to do first and how to approach it, we wanted a really viable and compelling first step in this space. And that led us to work with the Delve team to build boards, which is sort of, if you break the problem down, really helps with this problem of I have a lot of data and I just need the simplest, lightest weight social way of collecting it together. So boards have been in the service since the first week of January, and they're going worldwide. We started the worldwide rollout this week. And Mark, I think you're going to take us through a demo of boards.
So let's take a look at boards. And when you start to see the next series of demos and some of the things that we're talking about, we're in the camp of talking about knowledge management. And hopefully you'll see by the time we get to the end of the section how we've gotten started and then how it'll build up over time to become something that is not just a Delve experience, but that something that is a little bit more of a destination, but with the underlying technology that you see here. So I'm going to switch over and show you Garth here. First thing I just want to point out is what Adam was just showing you was the profile. So just in that same experience, this is where we're, again, trying not to be in a siloed experience, but to be smart on where people would go and maybe where they would go next. So here we have a couple of sets of boards, and I'll explain one once we get to it. This is just a collection of content that has come to the graph, and I've gone in, or other people have gone in, and added a specific board or a keyword. So these have all been tagged, and I'm clicked on the marketing offsite. So these have all been tagged or boarded with marketing offsite. If I'm in just the regular feed, I'm going to find one that doesn't have that, and we'll just remember this image here. I'm going to add to the board, and it's already there, but I'm going to type it out so that you can see we have the smart, intelligent type ahead, and click on the marketing offsite. This is now not moving the content. It's just added a simple tag, and when I go back to the board, right away you see that new piece of content's added here. Boards over time will become something that we think is going to be a place where people can curate the content even more. But for now, it's a little bit more all company. Anybody who uses this tag, that piece of content would show up. But it's not just in a singular document library. It's not just in somebody's OneDrive. It's from across all different parts of Office 365. Any signal that comes into the Office graph is something that we can then pin to a board. A document, a video, an email attachment, a website that somebody typed into a Yammer thread, and certainly lots more content and stuff that you saw in the keynote with third parties as well. So I could also, once I'm on a board, I can unfollow it if this board is no longer relevant to me. If I had come across a board that I didn't create myself, I could choose to follow it, which means it's going to put it over here on the left-hand side. And then just the same as any other sharing mechanism, I can go in, send a link. And then, of course, all the card mechanisms and all the nice layout and UI interface is applicable to boards, so that if I was on a mobile device, on a tablet, that would all be responsive. So that is one of the building blocks, which is boards. And I think it's a really nice start to what we want to help people to be able to collect information and share it in a more poignant way. Here are the set of documents that are relevant for this particular topic or this work project that we're on. And then going forward, moving beyond boards is another area we're investing in, and what we're trying to present to you today is a building block towards the knowledge management portal.
Yeah, and I hope you see this as a tremendous amount of value and sort of grassroots adoption. And we're super pleased with the sort of metrics coming so far from first release. But you're probably saying, hey, Mark and Adam, your work is not done. You've helped us collect a couple things together. But what if I wanted to rearrange the cards on the page? What if I wanted to add some explanatory text? What if I actually wanted a sort of deep embedding of something or make something a little bigger, a little smaller? Essentially, what if I wanted to create a page? And I need to be able to do that in a modern way, a way that I'm proud of, and a way that will look great on any device. And then, while we're at it, I create one page, but sometimes I want to talk about an area. So I want a couple pages that will come together. And essentially I want what we're terming a microsite. And I know there's a lot of terms we're throwing at you, so we'll try to explain all of them and make sure we wrap it up so you can keep them all in your head. But a microsite, you can think of it as a board on one side. A board is just an incredibly lightweight way of collecting something. Anybody can do it, and it should be done anytime you need it, when you have an offsite or something like that. And on the other side, of course, you have a publishing site. Oftentimes you're getting IT involved, and a really large publishing site. It can take an average of 9 months at over $1 million to be able to build. And we believe that there's this sort of Goldilocks thing in the middle, which is why we sort of use the word microsite. This thing that is, maybe you wouldn't do it every single day, but when you have a vision or a project you're trying to get out, and it's something that's easier, it can be done by an information worker or an end user without sort of involvement of IT. And it's sort of a modern way of being able to create pages in Office 365. So let's show it to you. We're going to do this thing where I'm going to demo creating a page in a microsite, and Mark is going to narrate what's going on. So I'm just going to start building the page, showing it to you, and Mark's going to tell us what's going on.
That's right. And Adam is off to the races. He's now loading up SharePoint. The page is going on. But also keep in mind, everything that he's doing is in the browser, obviously. He could be on different types of devices, different sizes. This is not a PC or a Mac type only experience. And it is modern in the ways that as he's starting to build the page, you'll see that it's responsive. And it's got a lot of content on it. And this content lives where it was born. We're not moving the content into a special place. It's easy to add content in if you're adding an article. And it's constantly being saved. So one of the things we want to draw your attention to is where it says draft not saved. Just watch that for a little bit. And without Adam having to click save or pull off a page and then it goes away, it'll hopefully soon, it'll let us know that it's saved the draft. And usually...
Well, I'm still working, so we'll...
okay.
It's going to continue to...
As he's putting it in, obviously, he added a title. He's adding some text here. We also have an embedded text editor in place to do some of the most common things like bolding, italicizing. If you wanted to call out something that's a little bit more like a quote, he could create a block quote. And then as he goes down below, you'll see, similar to how you can, in a modern way, add new content in this area. Click the button, brings up a toolbox. Here, he's actually pulling from OneDrive, and he's just adding a PowerPoint to the page. So that now, when whoever visits this page, they'll be able to see this PowerPoint. Not a link to the PowerPoint, but actually navigate through the PowerPoint because we're using the Office Online embed. One of the things that he isn't here while he's navigating, putting a little bit more text, if it were a Word document, one of the things that the Word Online technology allows you to do, if you have a 25-page white paper, you could actually program the page that you want to see. So maybe page 4 is what you wanted to highlight and write a little text to. You could actually highlight that specific page when somebody lands here to auto-open with page 4 showing. So this image could have come from his OneDrive. It could have come from his desktop. It's going to be put in the right place, and it's going to be scaled in the right way when people start to view this on smaller devices. So it's doing a lot of the work for him and giving him the ability to just quickly design the page, quickly pull in the content that he wants, and add the context that he needs.
There we go.
Thanks.
But I haven't hit publish yet.
Yeah, wait till he's published. I think the amazing thing here is, and we are the SharePoint team, so you can also do but how did you do this in the past? You know, SharePoint has always been great for creating pages and having a central repository for people to navigate and find information. Great value prop, and it has been consistently getting better with each release. This really takes it to that next level where it's much easier to do it. You don't have to figure out how to do it. It just makes sense. And then once you've published it, you have a lot of assurance that the experience is going to be great, whether somebody accesses it on their phone, which is obviously more and more common these days, or if they're on a big device and they want to see things full screen. Maybe they're using your article, your page in a meeting, and they want to show things. Certainly the page will scale up. But what Adam's showing you here is what does this look like on an Android tablet?
This is a Windows.
Oh, this is a Windows tablet, sorry. We have an Android phone.
It's basically just showing it's responsive to any device. You can see here we can still show the embedded PowerPoint. If I were to switch to a phone, embedded PowerPoint would be too small, so you'd see it as sort of a Delve-like card. And so it's basically easy to be able to create the content once and have it look beautiful on any device. And we believe this is what it should feel like to be able to create a page in Office 365.
Yeah. One last question before we kind of keep moving on. Who has tried or has successfully built responsive pages, whether it was in SharePoint or not? Who had a hard time with it? The hands stayed up. Just some went down, so kudos to you for doing responsive well. But that's usually what you hire somebody to do who really does understand the technology, can do it for you. These are pages, but all the portals that we've shown you, our intent is that the way that you access the content shouldn't be dictated by the device that you're on. And we hold that true even when you're authoring, but certainly this is a published state.
And just a core part of this technical architecture, like all this data is stored in SharePoint site collections and doclibs under the hood with right metadata columns so we can render the page. And we expose REST endpoints to a new client-side layer that we've written, basically, that can sort of quickly assemble the page, make some informed decisions about the device it's on, and then show the page to you. So it's a way of leveraging the rock-solid content management features on the back end of SharePoint, but modernizing what needed to be modernized, basically, the front-end layer. Now,
good question. We actually have a slide in another session that addresses a little bit of how we're working with the Sway team. I'll make one point and then answer your question and then
go ahead.
On, because it's a great question. We had hoped we would get it. the first thing that I wanted to let you know is what we've released in the new people experiences that's in first release for the Delve profile is actually using this new authoring canvas for blogging. But it's not just a blogging tool. As you can see, we want to leverage the canvas and make it more robust from an enterprise perspective so that people can create pages that are more enterprise grade, certainly everything backed in terms of where it's stored, how it's stored. But to answer your question, we're working with the Sway team. This is not to compete with them from an authoring content perspective. Some of what you'll hear, and I don't want to break their news, but the way that we can make these pages look really beautiful, Sway does that really well. And we're working with them to figure out a way if we can hand to them, beautify, and hand back. And certainly there are other group that we're working from a publish to perspective. So the teams are talking, and we certainly don't want that to be confusing.
Yeah, we're inspired by the same design principles. I think you'll see as time goes by, something like a microsite you could fit a Sway into super well. There's both the value of the microsite concept, which is sort of nav and bringing concepts together, as well as sort of the page authoring tech itself. And we're sharing code and looking at it. And throughout the company, there's many authoring experiences, all of which sort of talk about the core principles such that we have a consistent design philosophy from Microsoft, even as we all sort of experiment with various ways of achieving it. And so, yeah, while you were talking, I showed how to access the blog. You go to Delve, click on blog, you can click on a new post. And so you can see a very similar authoring canvas that you will see in microsites as microsites come to the service over the coming months. But already in first release, you can give us feedback on the authoring canvas. Let's see. Let's go back. And yeah, so there's a couple things that I want to refer people to. First off, this is sort of some of the core design principles and value prop of the modern page authoring in 365. And there are two sessions you should go to. One, I just gave a peek behind the scenes that, hey, this is stored in site collections and doclibs. I know there's a lot of interest in how that goes on. And so Dan Kogan and Jeremy Kelly are giving a drill-in session called Behind the Scenes. So not only for this, but for the video portal and Dell People portal, et cetera, we're going to sort of talk about how we use SharePoint, Azure, a bunch of core Microsoft technology to build the ready-to-go experiences. And it'll also drill more into the page authoring canvas itself, and especially on the sort of Sway and Office 365 authoring better together story. And then secondly, there is a drill-in talk on the new knowledge management portal in 365. So we had a time to breeze through a little bit the boards and microsites and pages. They will drill in and go deep. So you also probably saying, hey, okay, we started with lightweight collecting, and I said feedback way you need to be able to explain and annotate and move stuff around. So we talked about how it would grow up into a page, maybe in a microsite. But I would also say, hey, the work's probably not done yet. Because where do I create these microsites? And I teased there should be some sort of center of gravity for knowledge sharing and exchange within the company. And so that's what we are codenaming Infopedia. And I'll show you an early vision. We don't have a committed roadmap for this yet, but we wanted to show you an early look of what we're thinking about for bringing microsites, boards, on-prem SharePoint publishing sites, SharePoint online publishing sites together into one place where you could share and exchange information connected to your business processes as well. This will probably be a portal that will even be more important to be able to customize and extend because we know that that's super important. So let's switch back, and I'll show you a brief vision of where we'd like to go. So you can imagine, if you're just in Mail and you look at the app launcher in Office 365, you might imagine a new tile called Infopedia. If I were to click on that, what you can see, you can almost think about it as a little bit like the video portal, but with many types of content available in it. So you can see at the top, you can spotlight particular content. The company can say, hey, here's a new, if they sell chairs or something, there's a new collection. We want to energize our field force. We have a bunch of data about this or marketing decks that they should go through, and we're going to highlight it there. But when we looked at knowledge management and what something like Codenamed Infopedia might need, and we did a bunch of user study, the notion of personalization came up again and again. And so you can see we're using the graph here to provide personalized recommendations of what people might need to see. The first one there has been visited often by you, and so we highlight it on the home page. You might have favorited others, and I could favorite this one too by just clicking there, and it would favorite this particular microsite or page. And then another brief teaser, because we know that just like the video portal, we need some sort of organization element to it. So if I were to look up and click a nav element in this prototype, you might see the different types of divisions within the company. This is the notion of making Infopedia mission critical, making it represent the way you do business. And so I could click in on, for instance, sales and marketing, see some similar things where there's personalized recommendations as well as stuff spotlighted by the central sales and marketing team. And of course, I could see a directory of all microsites or boards. Or if you look incredibly carefully, that small business sales is actually an on-prem SharePoint portal that we've rolled up into this. Because if we're going to do central information management, a center of gravity, it should include both boards and microsites, the things that we own making responsive and look great, as well as all the existing content in the enterprise. Clapping's great.
Get that guy a microphone and just...
And so that's just a sneak peek of where we want to be able to go, and balancing all the places data are stored in the enterprise. And so, we want to end on time, and so we're going to sort of breeze through this. There is a drill-in session on Infopedia, so we'll talk about the core value props there. As I already mentioned, it's the same one I just mentioned that's going to go through boards and microsites and build up this knowledge management. I'm most excited about this. Out of all the portals we're building, this one has the chance to be the most transformative and the most impactful and the most ability for you to take tools back to your company and modernize the internet. So we've talked about, if you look at, we were just proceeding through that Meet the Family slide, and now we're at the time where we're going to talk about how the custom portal business is going and where it's going. So in other words, tools to enable you to build custom portals. Do you want to talk about SharePoint Online today?
Yeah. So today, if you look at SharePoint Online, what have people been doing? A lot of it is bringing their content in from SharePoint environments that they had before or creating new. So we're seeing a huge growth in SharePoint Online, and we see it really split across a third of portals, a third on team sites, and a third on OneDrive for Business, which would have come from something like a file server or a My Documents in a My Site. And so there's a lot of momentum. When there's another session that's going to talk a little bit more around the back-end system, and some of the metrics that they're landing on are pretty significant growth, and I'll save their number for when they have their session. But it's exponential, and really they calculated since the SharePoint conference, which when we last told you how many users, how much content, and it's really growing and it's accelerated a lot. The vision is really what we landed on as far as where do we start, what do we have, and how do we innovate off of that. And it's really what types of portals are people building. So when we initially released SharePoint Online, you could obviously leverage the publishing infrastructure and build the types of portals in the way that you've done before, but we didn't yet have that search-driven experience. So we released the content by search web part, and it really accelerated. It's actually one of the most used web parts that we have in SharePoint Online. People leveraging it in the portals and really driving that to be a much more dynamic user experience purely because of the power of search. And then from a time to value perspective, we are learning a ton, not just about what types of portals they're building, but really what are the stumbling blocks that people are hitting, and how can we help people understand where there might be some performance design elements that maybe are slowing things down, or just best practices about how many different types of web parts on the pages. We're getting real data, obviously, and learning a ton, not just on the what can we fix on our end, but what we can promote as things that people can think about. So one website that we have for all of Office 365 is a quick, easy shortcut to get there, aka.mswacktune. And if you land there, there's just a ton of best practice guidance in how to best implement all these different workloads so that your network performance and the performance of the pages is optimized. So that's if we did our homework in terms of what we have in market today. The clearest picture is we're working on making sure that you have that best experience and that it's supported now and going forward in terms of a way to build portals from a custom perspective. But certainly, we have a lot of thoughts on where we're going next, and let's share that thinking with you.
Great. All right, 6 minutes left. We're committed to ending on time. I know seats are at a premium, so I'll bank this slide, talk about it, get to the other sessions, and then wrap up. So when we think about, we have quite a few what we call dev dollars. In other words, engineers spent on making sure that you can build a custom portal that's awesome in Office 365. And when we think about sort of the block and tackle, the top row, like just where we spend the sort of day-to-day time making sure everything goes well, we really do obsess about speed. We know we're moving from just sort of a vendor of software into a runtime partner for you as you host your portal in Office 365. And I can't think of a month where we didn't have 2 to 3 things in the pipeline to improve speed. Things you don't even need to make a change with. Like right now, we're moving how we're storing the taxonomy database into a different system such that we're improving availability and performance, and we're modifying and tuning the caches that the content by search web part uses. These are things your portal will just get faster as a result of. You don't need to do anything to take advantage of it. And we can do this because we have, at this point, the largest amount of data about SharePoint portals and their usage and performance statistics than anywhere else on the planet. We have hundreds of millions of data points, hundreds of millions of page views every month for publishing portals. And we analyze that data, and we take a look at what is causing some portals to be slow. We actually proactively reach out to particular customers if it's sort of a guidance issue. And then, of course, take that feedback to make internal improvements as well. And we heard the feedback loud and clear at the last SharePoint conference. You wanted more guidance. You wanted to know how to build a portal in SharePoint Online and what was different than building it on-prem. And I think that ak8ms/tune is an awesome resource, and we'll continue to do that. And you'll see a bunch of drill-in sessions. We have a deep dive into SharePoint branding that was yesterday. I just heard we're going to do a redux of that talk. I don't quite know when, but I'm sure it's in the Ignite portal. Now? Oh, okay, well.
Run.
Okay, let's bank it so we can finish on time. And then we also have best practices for designing and performance. We're bringing in experts that have boots on the ground that do it all the time, as well as engineering expertise. But then I wanted to talk a little bit about our vision for where we're going forward. What do we think the major technical rocks we want to work on? And I would say, at this point, compared to even when we released 2013, there's a bunch of open source industry standard tools, especially on the web UX on the front end, that I know you want to leverage when you build a portal. Great things that help make responsiveness easier. And we want, over time, to make it really get basically SharePoint out of the way of that conversation to allow you to use open source tools on the web front end, or if you're building native apps, to really make your the portal look great. And sort of related, and one thing we're going to be able to do that, is over time I think you'll see a better contract for us between the content management features on the back end and then the fact that there's various devices and UX experiences on the front end. And of course, through stateless REST endpoints is where we have that great contract. This is really forced by the fact that most portals today will be accessed by some native apps as well as in the browser. And when we were building the video portal, we obviously sort of stumbled into this, where basically we have REST endpoints that both the front end and the web UX as well as the iPhone app uses. And I think you'll see a better separation than you have in the past between those two layers, and not a lot of server-side logic at runtime as opposed to today. And the last one is it's our commitment to you to make sure as you build a SharePoint portal, because you want to use the rock-solid content management features of SharePoint, you can still leverage the best that is coming out of Azure, be it CDNs, be it, of course, the sort of application hosting model. And as time goes by, we're going to continue to work lockstep with that organization such that we're modernizing together the ability to build a portal. So that was just a little tease. The behind-the-scenes engineering next-gen portals that Dan is going to be doing, the Breakout 2205, is not only going to go tell you how we built next-gen portals, it's going to go into more detail about this slide and building custom portals as well. So if you're super interested in this space, that's a definite must-have talk. Great. We got a couple minutes left, and we can wrap it up. So here's the Meet the Family slide again. We talked about how video is a great thing in worldwide release today that can both demonstrate the 4 principles as well as help provide incredible value. And we talked about 2 other portals and some ideas for building custom. We're not done yet. I'm sure there's feedback you already have about new things you'd like to see and build. And so please, there's an AK8MS URL right there that has a link to all the ways you can give us feedback. User voice, in product, and elsewhere. And so please, we desperately need that.
Yeah, and one of the new things that we just created if you're on the Office 365 network is a new group for next-gen portals. And it's a great place to get feedback on the conference today. We're also going to be active in the conference network for Yammer. So we'll actually be pretty active there this week. But going forward, if you have feedback or questions around next-gen portals or as they roll out, you see things that you like, don't like, we are open to that feedback, to the discussion. And if you look at Office 365 video, we've already been, we have a very active group there, and the engineering team is very active there. I'm active there to answer questions, to point you to resources, and to certainly take the feedback. Last thing we want to point out is on your chair, there's a survey form. If you have a moment now, or even just throughout the conference, and drop it by the booth, let us know what you thought about today. And again, thank you for your time.